Welcome to Reggie's Realm. I am Reggie Van Stockham. I am here in my teaching museum with my teaching collection of wonderful items that I use to travel my imagination through the wonder of science, history, and culture in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Kentucky is an old Commonwealth. By that I mean older than the Europeans who settled in the 1700s, back into the early Native Americans who came to this wonderful land and saw such glory, never affected by the glaciers, developing and carving itself into the landforms that are so precious to the Kentuckians. So this series of video logs will explore places in Kentucky that you may not know exist. And that's the purpose of the surrounding series. I don't do research before I go out. I don't know where I'm going because I don't want to see that which I already know is there. I want to find the things that surround those attractions that I don't know about, that I can discover and find such enjoyment in learning about. And Kentucky is full of those places, just darn full. Now, in order to see those things, you've got to have maps. Maps, maps, maps. So let's look at some of them. This is a 1950s map, which gives you an example of the topography and demonstrates pretty effectively the physiographic regions of the Commonwealth. This is the Great Cumberland Plateau, or the part of the Appalachian Mountains, over here on the eastern part of the state. Right here. Let me give you some distance there. So the great Kentucky coal fields are over to the east, but look at this interesting structure. We'll be studying this in detail. Pine Mountain upthrust. This area down here even called South America because it's so hard to reach. You come over and you see the central bluegrass. This is the inner bluegrass around Lexington. There's Muldraw's Hill and the Mississippian Plateau, all of which we will describe in some detail in the travels. Eastern coalfields to the right, western coalfields to the left or west. Land between the lake. On this map, there's only one. It's so old, they haven't dammed up this one yet. This is the Cumberland River. This is the Tennessee River. And then this, the Jackson Purchase area of western Kentucky. So this map can really get your Daniel Boone on. When you take a look at it and you figure out coming through the Cumberland Gap how you might get through this great wilderness, how you might cross path over the Rockcastle River and get into the riches of the Commonwealth. We'll be doing some of that in this series. This next map also shows the relative elevations in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, but with color codes rather than with drawn shaded relief. Eastern Kentucky here, Lexington. I'm based in Shelbyville, outside of Louisville, between Frankfort and Louisville. Western Kentucky coal fields, and then western Jackson Purchase area, land between the lakes down here. This gives you a real good idea of how the land lies. But the important thing about this map is why it lies like this. And the reason it does is because of the waterways. More water flows in Kentucky than any other state in the nation, with the exception of Alaska. So this next map is the one that is my go-to map, and it will describe in great detail the different drainage systems in the Commonwealth. Now, why is that important to me? As you see, not by highways, not by county lines, but by drainage patterns, what makes Kentucky so great. And it's important for this reason. Kentucky was never glaciated, just lightly licked by those ice sheets in far northern Kentucky. As a result, the stone layers that were laid down by the oceans more than 500 million years ago have been eroding ever since. In fact, those 500 million year old stones are at the surface, at the bottom of the great Kentucky River Palisades. You can canoe the Kentucky River. You can walk on rocks that were laid down 500 million years ago. Now that's pretty groovy. I think rather nifty. For that length of a period of time, since the waters receded permanently from Kentucky, with the exception of the Jackson Purchase area in far western Kentucky, the waters left Kentucky about 290 million years ago. And ever since, this great Commonwealth has been carving itself into wonderful niches and landforms. The Red River Gorge is just an example that fires up people's imaginations, but this whole Commonwealth is full of places like that on different scales, places that I like to go to, that I like to discover, that I like to find because I don't know we're there, and then study the science, history, and culture that surrounds them. Of course, you need to have some idea of where you are and how you're going to get there. And in Kentucky, with more than 120 counties, we have great histories of the peoples that have settled here. And so you have a map that shows the counties, and they give you an idea of where you are as you're traveling around. Especially helpful when you don't know where you're traveling around and you want to have some idea of where you've been. This is the great escarpment of the Cumberland Plateau being the eastern Kentucky coalfields, and there's that wonderful Pine Mountain that we'll be studying later. When I travel with a smartphone, and I use my smartphone map app, particularly the Google app, because it has something called a terrain view. And when you look at the terrain view, it shows the streams in a 3D view of the elevations of the ridges around them. It's really a terrific tool in my surrounding journey logs. I also have a Garmin that I put up on the windshield, which will tell me by satellite how to get out of wherever I've gone, and I might just indicate that that's pretty darn handy when you end up deep in eastern Kentucky on the middle fork of the Kentucky River. It's good to have these tools. So, as we move forward on our journeys, I hope that you will follow in your own journeys and explore the areas of Kentucky that are even beyond my imagination. It will become a journey of your own. And I champion that for you. When you hear this music again, I'll be back with more of Reggie's Realms Journey Logs. I hope you'll join me. The music you hear is Chopin's Lost Waltz, recently discovered, played by Dr. Stephen Taylor, wrapped around with a retro mixtape by Zan Hoffman in Spain. I hope you'll come back and join me again. I promise I'll make it worth your while.
you.